welcome back to another episode here on the main channel, Crispy Boy, where we are doing a first impressions on the third Nickelodeon Kart Racers game. I'm not alone today. I am joined by an amazing content creator, Captain Eric.
Hello, ahoy, ahoy, Crispy. Just so you know, before we start, I spoke to my good friend Crispin Glover this morning, and I secured the rights for you to be able to say it's Crispin time.
Oh my god, are you serious?
At the beginning of all of your videos, so
Dude.
it's been cleared by the man himself. So
that is such an honor. I really appreciate you going out your way for that.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Now, as a heads up, a review is coming on the channel, but it'll be a while away. But in the meantime, I really wanted to get my first impressions out there. But I did really want to reach out to this amazing content creator and see if he would want to join me. And instead of having a 10-minute light conversation by myself, it would be a lot easier to have someone that is just as knowledgeable, if not more, about Nickelodeon and kart racers and whatnot.
Don't set me up for failure. Come on now.
Would you say you're a fan of Nickelodeon, Captain?
Yeah. Yeah. It's pretty obvious to anybody who follows me in my everyday life, but you know, it's always been there, and I know when to unleash the Nickelodeon inside me and when to hold it back. But this is certainly a time to let it slide. So
absolutely. Before we get into the meat of things, I did want to ask: have you played the first two games of the Nickelodeon Kart Racers?
I did, and I really I've always enjoyed the idea of just kart racers where characters get together. I know the idea is to always say it's just copying off of Mario Kart, but I like to use the word influence, because at the end of the day, what project can you point to that is not influenced by something else? So the idea of it happening has always been an enjoying idea for me. But the first two games have been a nice little trajectory, I think, for this studio and this concept. But that's the one word I want to keep coming back to, is that it keeps feeling like a concept that they keep evolving, and we haven't seen its final form, I hope. But the first one, very bare bones.
I did not like the first one. I was
bare
like,
bones.
Oh man, I gotta let him know. I would prefer the Nicktoons racing on the Game Boy over the first. And it's great to see them, like, build on that, right? I'm glad that Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 felt like a great transition, like the climbing the ladder of building on top of something that had a great idea, but was not able to really sink its teeth into anything. But I do think that Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 was able to stick out from the crowd from a bunch of different reasons. Mainly I was a big fan of the crew member inclusion.
Absolutely.
Dude, I love the crew members. I'm like, all right, this is very clever, and I think that this is something that they can build on. It wasn't something that I necessarily thought they would do in another 2 years, and now having 3 games on the same system, it's very weird. It's different. We'll get into that a little bit.
Absolutely.
Did your physical copy ever get in?
So I had pre-ordered, just for the sake of argument, I pre-ordered all the physical copies just to see what would happen, and just were based off of the reviews and decisions and whatnot. The Switch one was the only one to come in from those pre-orders, and the frame rate wasn't the best on that version. And knowing that, you know, for content purposes, it's easier to just have the PC version, I just went and bought the Turbo Edition on Steam. So I've had a little bit of time with both editions, and I think that's actually better to have, because I kind of like the idea of having it portable, and I wanted to complete the trilogy there, so.
Absolutely. Well, so I don't know if on Twitter I have my own conspiracy theory on the whole physical release and why.
What was the theory?
There's a million different reasons why it could be late and why they ship it out later. But my main one that I was sticking to, because this isn't the first one, Nickelodeon All-Stars Brawl, that physical release was late.
Oh god.
Freaking
just for not to go too much into detail, I do work in games retail.
Okay,
And
so you are a perfect person for this.
I will tell you that in meetings, I was bringing up All Star Brawl, knowing like, hey, is this incoming? Because at first it wasn't pre-orderable for a while, and then it was. And I can tell you, at least in this current time frame, there's a lot happening in the shipping realm of things that is causing a lot of issues. So I have no idea. There could be a conspiracy going on.
Sure.
But I don't know. I have no idea. No answer for it.
I mean, that's the thing, right? So, and then Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that like the physical copy, it not only wasn't shipped, but it was just like, no, we're not giving out the physical copies until like months down the line. And my thinking process with that was because they get more money when you buy the digital version, because the physical edition, you're also taking money out of the cartridge and the case and whatnot. And I'm like, what if they're doing this to get more? I don't think that's necessarily it.
It's an interesting concept. There have been a slew of games to release digital only, and then all of a sudden a year later there's a physical release. So I just think there's just this trend of games with good word of mouth that they want to now pass on to that physical realm. And I guess there's still money to be made in that place, because why, if your game is already successful digitally, what is the incentive to go physically? I mean, Cuphead is now getting a physical release, so
very true.
Here's another game that's just hopping over. So no concrete answers, but I do know that there is from warehouses moving, obviously shipping tankers getting like clogged up in situations around the world. There's a ton of different FedEx and the post office getting backed up with the amount of orders, and especially now going into the holiday season, it's just going to get worse.
That's fair. That's honestly fair. Of course, there's multiple different reasons, like limited run games are like, oh yeah, there's not much of an incentive to, one, you will lose money, and two, it's like, well, why gamble? Why gamble it? But I definitely find it weird that, hey, I want to pre-order this game, and it's like, okay, cool, but that'll come a month later. It's like, oh, all right.
If you are a purchaser of limited run, you have to be a patient person. That's all I have to say.
That is fair.
One thing about the first kart racers I wanted to say, though, one thing, without knowing contracts and what's said behind the scenes, that first game really felt like we'll give you scraps of what you can choose from. Like, here's what you obviously have to cover, and then they may have fought for Hey Arnold, and maybe Rugrats was obvious, but it just felt like a concept. Like, all right, here's what you can do with the license. Now build off of it. And I did enjoy Kart Racers 2 more for all of that Nickelodeon content. I don't go into it thinking it's going to be better than any other game, but for the stuff I do expect, I was pleasantly happy for more of that experience. Likewise, going into the third one, so much more of that Nickelodeon spread throughout, although some of it missing from the last game, and that's troubling, but yes. I hope they copy what All-Star Brawl did with DLC, and a little bit of what Mario Kart's been doing of their little DLC packages, and we get more courses and characters down the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely found it weird that those 4 characters were kind of Thanos snapped out of existence.
Especially like for some of the characters that did keep over, like, no offense to JoJo Siwa, because she is obvious synonymous with Nickelodeon, and in her own right is a wonderful human being. So I have to imagine, I don't even know she's a part of this game, but maybe through a contract they had to keep her in. She's probably ecstatic about being in a kart racer, but I see that and I go, well, where's Kel Mitchell and Ed from Good Burger? Where's Pierre Escargot driving around in his bathtub? Both Keenan and Kel have been wonderful human beings and synonymous with Nickelodeon. So I don't know where that's happening, but
I definitely find it weird that there is a live action character in the midst with all these cartoon characters. Like, there was I don't know if it was a Flash game, but there was a old game on Nick.com where they had SpongeBob, the penguins from Madagascar, iCarly, and I think Victorious all in a kart racer, and I'm like, this is a weird mashup. Like, out of all the characters to have, these are the 4 that you chose, which I'm like, all right, whatever, but it was definitely interesting.
I think what happens with those situations, there's got to be a room of people making those arcade games, and they just have someone come in with a memo going, hey, these are the shows to focus on. Yeah, and they're like,
Sure.
"How do we make iCarly into a fighter?" All right, we will.
We'll figure it out, yeah, I guess. All right, all right. Before we move on from the lack of, like, the four missing characters, the
Yep.
one that I find is very strange that is missing is Tommy Pickles. Out of all of...
Wow, we have different answers for that, actually.
Really? All right, well, please tell me your answer
Yeah,
then.
my answer is Heifer.
Heifer! All right,
Heifer.
no, I'm...
Here was my thought process with this though, and I understand Tommy because I mean he's one of the pillars of Nickelodeon. He's up there with SpongeBob and then another character who's missing, and we'll get to him later.
Yeah.
But Heifer rarely makes appearances in video games. So the fact that they have a model of Heifer and they didn't carry that over, Tommy has had his fair share. So
it's very weird. I'm wondering if it's a size thing because all the characters fit in the same cart. It's not like it's a voice acting thing. Like, Tom Kenny's inside the game. He's voicing SpongeBob. I'm sure he would be super happy to voice Heifer too, but it's such a... I did find it weird, and I was honestly disappointed because I'm such a big Rocco's Modern Life fan as well. It's like, oh, we're gonna take away one of Rocco's. All right.
Yeah, fine.
Cool. Yeah.
Hey, look, we shrunk down Reptar to be able to race everybody. You can shrink down Heifer to size.
That is fair, and we got double Reptar too, which I'm
not
knocking.
We got dose Reptars. Yeah. Tommy though is strange, although both him and Angelica, it feels prime to be like a future DLC pack with the two of them. Obviously, more looking like their CG reboot counterparts with the addition of Susie and Chucky, which by the way, the models in the game for most of the characters really good, really on point. There's some issues here and there, but you got to remember these artists on this game are taking multiple art styles, trying to combine it into a racer, and hey, there's a time frame to get this done, so
that was my argument too. You're working with multiple different art styles. You gotta fit it into one congruent art style to make the game feel like it all fits together. So
somewhat cohesive.
Yeah, I get why they look the way that they do. So before we get too far into it, the price for this game, Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 was $30, right? And I thought that was a great. This one is, I believe, $50. It's $50. So they're adding a $20 price tag, and also they're adding the deluxe edition, which I don't know how I feel about that. I did get it because I needed Zuko, but I
paid for it because it's
just
support,
Well, one, I need Zuko. I absolutely need Zuko. Of course, I want to support these guys too, but it's also like it feels as if they're trying to. I don't know, that kind of practice for me always felt a little weird. It's like, here's two more characters. It's $10 for two characters, which I feel like that feels like a little more, like a lot for me. You know what I mean?
I guess it depends on the characters, really. Sure. I think it all comes down to that hype level. If it was two characters that either have never, been in the Kart Racers series to begin with, or making their video game debut in general, and you were just overall excited about that, maybe your use level of them would obviously come into play, but just straight up two characters for $10, yeah, that feels a lot. It feels like a lot, like with
not to mention
looking at
one
Mario
of them is
Kart adding in levels and other stuff along with it.
Yeah, and not to mention one is a skin. One is a reskin of an existing character inside the game, Raphael. And it's like, all right, so I mean, I want Zuko, and I'll pay $10. I'll pay $1 million for Zuko. I'll pay all the money for Zuko. But it felt a little dirty. But also, I got to get full completionist on this. This game feels very hard to complete, Captain. I don't know if you feel the same way.
The coin level is a slow drip. I can feel it, and I was, even after a couple of free races, I was like, all right, I'll go into the garage and see what I can get, and not much.
No, I can't.
A lot to dangle at me and make me, savor at. And an impressive level of deep cut references. Once again, whoever that is behind the scenes at the studio, I want their job badly, but they're doing a good job. They're working overtime, but
absolutely. I do. You have to do 20 races if you want to get a character that costs 200 coins. 20 races or 20 tracks. So that's 20 times 3. That's a lot. That's a lot. Yeah. That's a lot of tracks.
Oh. Yeah, it is.
Yeah, so it's a grind, man. It's a lot.
I really miss the days when characters, were either secrets that you had to actually do series of events to complete, to obtain that character, or just beating certain cups, certain time limits, time trials. I don't know. Like, I wish there was just a more creative way for some of the unlocking overall. But
yeah. Well, I mean, they kind of dove into that into the second game, but this one, it's really trying to get you to get your money's worth if you want to go for full completion. Like, I'm right now just trying to go for all the characters, but also this game is all about switching up the carts that you have too. You can customize your cart to your wishing, which is great. You get 3 default ones at the beginning, but I haven't bought any carts because I'm so focused on buying the characters, and I've sunk 10 hours into this game. So if I want to complete everything, I know it's a ridiculous amount, and I haven't even unlocked all the characters yet. It is a slow. I don't even know how to unlock Raphael and Michelangelo. Yeah, Michelangelo.
Thank goodness we have all 4 turtles again. Is it All-Star Brawl that's missing 2 of the turtles?
They're missing the 2. Yeah. I'm glad that they went back to the original art style with the turtles. Not that I don't like the 2009 Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I do enjoy them a great chunk. Even if they wanted to, like, hey, you can either switch between these turtles or the old turtles, but I mean, I guess voice acting would be.
I also, I feel like it would just be a simple email to find out if the models from the 2012 series could just be sent over and just swapped in as another costume swap.
Sure. Well, I mean, they were in the last game too.
Yeah.
2012. Am I thinking of the right one?
It feels like in the video games, Nickelodeon have only ever really focused on the 87 Turtles, like the old school ones, and they haven't really put in much of the 03 Turtles, the 2012, and even the Rise, which, my goodness, that series deserves a little bit more love.
I do like that series. That is actually a very fun series. Okay, well, let's go ahead and get into real fast. The Twitter, strangely enough, I really enjoyed this game's Twitter announcements. Over on Twitter, what they basically had...
Absolutely.
It was, they were showing off characters slowly. So they would show off silhouettes of these characters, and then it was your job to try to guess the silhouette of said character. And I'll show some photos on the screen, but they every week they're like, hey, here's a photo, guess the character, and you'll get a free game that they'll like draw you out of a hat, which was awesome. Captain, I saw you interacting with them. It was very fun. I never wanted to copy your answers, so I was like, oh man, that's a good guess. I'll just go somewhere else. But
really tried my hardest, and in that last one, they legitimately had me. I threw a pitch in there thinking, well, if they're going to throw Squidina, they got to just at least put in the Patrick show Patrick, and they threw a curveball.
Yeah,
got me with that one.
I was very surprised to see Camp Coral representation inside this game, which I guess they had the racetracks and whatnot, but as far as characters went, it was it did surprise me. Now we have almost 7 characters representing the SpongeBob universe, which is it's a lot. It's a lot. I mean,
it deserves them.
Of course,
I wish there was more, a little bit, honestly.
I'm a huge fan of SpongeBob specifically, and also, I mean, all Nickelodeon characters, but it was interesting. I thought that there might be a little more backlash with those 3 characters being Camp Coral, SpongeBob, Patrick, and Squidina. I haven't seen any yet, which is great. I'm gonna be honest, I'm a big fan of Squidina. I absolutely adore her. She's one of my favorites from the Patrick Star Show.
From what I've seen, I haven't watched much of the show, but not only from what I've seen, I've enjoyed some of the character interactions. I love that it's just made up of different segments and art styles that they can delve into with the SpongeBob universe. Why not let people go nuts with these characters? And the level of the Patrick Star Show in this game was really, really fun to drive through. It's one of my favorites of the game, honestly.
I really like that. There is a challenge where you have to drift inside that game, and I haven't been able to get one successful blue drift inside this game, which is so irritating. I love the level.
We'll have to see how hard it is. I'll have to see how it is. I haven't tried that challenge yet.
It's not. I haven't been. I've tried it 5 times maybe.
The drifting. You know what? The game All-Star Brawl gets a lot of connections to Melee. And if you played a ton of Melee, you can see why those connections are there. With this game, I find a lot with Mario Kart Wii. Not necessarily with just the bikes even, but just the way some of the drifting occurs. It's not as tight as I wish it was. I wish it was just a little bit tighter, but I enjoy the drifting thus far in the game. That gauges my enjoyment of racers for the most part.
The drifting, absolutely.
Just the smoothness of those levels. I mean, that's why I go back to some of my favorite Mario Karts, Double Dash, Mario Kart 8, like being able to go through those levels quick and into drifts nonstop. That's, I don't know.
I did hop back into Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 before we hopped on the Zoom call to try to get a feel for that game too, and like truly compare Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2 to Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, because I have a argument that they're kind of similar, which I hope to dive into a little more later. But the drifting in this one, it does feel a little better than Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2, I will admit. You have a little more control than Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2. Yeah. I mean, as far as like differences, I do notice small differences that really does enhance Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3 from 2. One of my biggest gripes, so to speak, about Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, one, the frame rate issues, two, the load times, for some reason, are super long in this game. I legit have pulled out my phone and just scrolled through Twitter as I'm waiting for the load times for this game to load, which is, it's hard when you're trying to navigate the menus, especially if you're like, oh, I just want to take a look at the garage, see what I can afford right now. That's going to take you like 30 seconds to get through. Which...
Yeah, I have actually a real big complaint with the game, and I hope the developers watch this. At the end of a race, you have an option to either, replay the race, select a racer, or select level. If you go to select level, you still have to go through the select racer options in the garage, and anyway, it's like, what's the point of having that as a button? It should just be changing the level and assuming you want to keep everything that you currently have.
I did not consider that, actually. That's genuinely a good.
I would say the option should be replay, return to garage, and then just straight up just change level. If you're just going from like free races and whatnot, or changing up cups.
No, that's fair. That's honestly fair. One thing that I do want to point out with this game over the last one is just how much they kind of reuse. Now, I believe with any kart racer or any game in general, when you're creating a sequel based off of that game, it's nice to build on top of that, especially if it's on the same platform. So we got all three games on the same platform. 1, not so good. 2 felt like a massive improvement on 1. 3, there were some improvements, but not nearly as much as the difference between 1 and 2.
Agreed. I think the biggest difference might be the distraction of the newest edition of the character roster being Jimmy Neutron and Jenny from My Life as a Teenage Robot, obviously getting this resurgence of popularity, both characters in their own right. That upon, the new additions of Squidina, but Jimmy Neutron has been getting such a resurgence on Twitter, and if you're on social media, that character gets so much attention. So I think that being a part of it was a big deal. But yeah, there doesn't seem to be as much of an extra load as there was from 1 to 2, because it just seemed like they went completely ham into the character department from 1 to 2, and from 2 to 3 it's like they pulled back a little bit. But I really like, at least the addition of those characters. But there's one omission that I've been holding back this entire discussion that I think we need to bring up.
Absolutely.
Tommy is one thing. There's another character who I think surpassed Tommy in episode count on Nickelodeon and has no appearance across any of these games. Timmy Turner from The Fairly Odd Parents.
That is incredible. All right, okay. I'm going to tell you right now. I 100% agree with you. Okay, all right, so sorry, technical difficulties, everyone. The 4 characters that I think really helped push Nickelodeon in the early 2000s and made all the entrances and all these crossovers were Jimmy Neutron, Danny Phantom, SpongeBob SquarePants, and Timmy Turner. And Absolutely. The lack of Timmy Turner is astonishing in this game. Just in general too. Like, where is he? Where is he at?
I have to imagine, with the amount of love that goes into these games, that the question is asked, hey, can we use The Fairly Odd Parents? And it has to be denied. For some reason, I don't know why. I mean, it was a big deal that Timmy just joined the tennis game on the iPad. If you have that, there's a Nicktoons tennis game. Yeah, Timmy just got into that, which was a big deal. He should be a stock character for any future Nickelodeon crossover game. That he should be up there with SpongeBob and Rugrats.
I 100% agree with you. Here's what I've heard. I've heard that Timmy Turner is in China, not a Nickelodeon property. It sounds like they sold him to another like channel altogether. So if they were to sell this game in China, they would have to fight with that property with them. I don't know if that's true or not.
I don't believe that. I mean, you know what? It makes sense. Like it's an answer. Sure, yeah. It's an answer to the question, absolutely. But the thought of owning that property and selling it off, like if you are the parent of it and selling that off, just is bizarre to me. And if that's true, I hope Brian Robbins is able to get that taken care of, because I mean, take Disney's stance. I know the Disney and the Mouse House have a lot of negative outlook these days, but with the way they handle their characters, Nickelodeon should be on top of that stuff.
Oh, that's fair.
I'm just saying, you know.
It's so weird that Timmy Turner has not made an appearance and we've had four of like from the Game Mill game series games of and Timmy just hasn't made an appearance whatsoever. And
there has to be something. So maybe what you said is true, because
the
lack of Timmy and you know what? It's the first time I have honestly ever heard that theory, and it's just maybe I'm just coming through the acceptance. All the stages of grief you just witnessed in one moment. Wow.
Well, in Timmy's defense, it was weird that we haven't had Jimmy up until this point. Like,
absolutely.
Honestly strange.
Absolutely.
I'm like, why haven't we had... And Jimmy being announced was like, oh my god, we got Jimmy, but why? Like, it's so weird that he wasn't in any of the other three games, but... So maybe they can work something out with Timmy, but
I really hope that, just like my feelings of the games as they continue to evolve, that they're a concept of a future big moment for them. I hope that moment happens with just a flood of more characters and go deep cut, because I don't want to assume that the design process of a character in a racer is less than of a fighter, but I do assume that. There's a lot of hard work that must go into it.
Absolutely.
But I hope one day we get to the point that we do see some more live action characters from all that. I hope they get so deep cut that we see Josh and Parker from Mr. Meaty, and we see Kablam characters. Henry and June are racing out there. And can we at least get some Rocket Power and Wild Thornberry's characters while we're at it, guys?
Rocket Power. Oh my god. Yeah, honestly, I was really surprised that Wild Thornberry's also didn't make a return, especially because everyone was really excited about Nigel Thornberry being in Nickelodeon All-Star
Brawl.
Yeah, All-Star Brawl.
So many names to follow with all the Nickelodeon games these days. The Humvee, you think, if you're making a Nickelodeon kart racer, you're like, all right, what are the top 10 most iconic Nickelodeon cars? And the Thornberry's Humvee is top 5. So
absolutely. I can't freaking unlock any of the cars. I can't save up enough money for the cars. Nickelodeon, we gotta change our process of how we're unlocking things.
I'm going after the Mauve Avenger. That's the one I'm going after.
You know what I've actually been doing? There is a challenge inside the so there's race mode, there's challenge mode, there's time trials, all that blah blah. There is a 1 lap race that you play with Clyde inside of a spooky mansion, and you go and you try to collect 5 coins, and if you win you get 10 coins that way. So I have played that challenge. It's the fastest way to get cash. It's a trickle too, but I've been playing that over and over and over and over again. I played it 30 times, meaning I got 300 coins from that. But still, I'm like, I don't want to play this 30 more times. I want to have fun with the game, but I also want to unlock things.
I don't mind grinding. I mean, it's happened before. Like even Multiverses recently, that first battle pass, I had to spend 4 hours the last night grinding. And you just throw on a podcast or two and you just have at it. Shut your mind off and you just play the game if it's fun enough. And luckily, this game, I think is fun enough to warrant a little bit of grinding, but
sure.
Yeah, the trickle is tough. Hopefully that race with Clyde is good for you because I have not jumped into that at all. And thanks for the tip.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Because I mean, if you want to unlock stuff like, because my thing is I gotta make the review. I'm hoping to make the review. I'm hoping to make it soon. I'm like, all right, well, let's work with as much as I can. So off like when I'm not grabbing footage, I'm just at my couch listening to SpongeBob in the background and just like, okay, lap number 1 done, lap number 2 done, okay, I got 300 coins, great, but I need more. Just doing that.
Yeah,
like, I just want to play the game.
definitely. I think from a completionist standpoint, it's a bit rough, but I think, depending on the kind of gamer you are and the racers you're looking to play as, if it's not too many, you're looking to unlock 1 or 2, and then after that, it's just all the parts. I don't think it's that terrible because the part prices don't seem to be too bad for the most part.
Yes, they're not bad. Like 30 for the wheels and for the exhaust, it's a little more. But the carts themselves are also the same amount as the characters, and that's the one where I'm like, oh, let's get a new cart, and it's like, well, let's work on the characters first, and then we'll transition over to the carts. But I've been working with the same three carts, and I'm like, I'm ready for a new one.
I gotta say, I was tricked by that spooky level in the game. When I saw the thumbnail, I didn't expect it to be a Loud House level. I forgot what's her name, Lucy in the game.
Mm-hmm.
I thought, oh wow, they went from making a Double Dare referenced level to an Are You Afraid of the Dark referenced level, and I got really excited. And I then quickly, not that the Loud House is a disappointment, but I was just like, all right, I don't have the frame of knowledge for that one.
Absolutely. Okay, real fast. How do you feel about the voice acting? We get this game, that was a big selling point for this game. This game got voice acting. Thoughts, concerns, comments? Let me hear, man.
I don't mind speaking on behalf of every fan of this game, but I will take the reoccurring lines over and over and over and over again over Dead Silence.
That's
so fair. On that front alone, the Shia LaBeouf stand up and clap really aggressively meme, that is me at this moment in time. So the fact that it's there is a blessing.
That's great.
Should it have taken it 3 games? No, but they were like I said, we don't know behind the scenes what the restraints with Nickelodeon were, and especially the prices of some of these voice actors probably
high, yeah.
Time.
It's weird because they're like a lot of them are reread lines from the show, which I don't know if they wanted to if it were easier just to grab lines from the show, or like, all right, let's bring everyone in and then we'll have them read lines, but just the ones so they're all references and everyone's good with that. Honestly, I'm gonna be honest.
Yeah, go ahead. This is a place to be honest. So I mean,
I did not mind that there wasn't any voice acting in the first. I was like, whatever.
Really?
I didn't care. Yeah, it was weird because for me, whenever I played these games too, typically I'm playing for the visuals and I'll put a podcast in the background and I'll just listen to that. Not that it's not appreciated, because now I'm like, oh, I was excited to like, oh yeah, let's hear what CatDog sounds like in this game, or what Rocco, and oh yeah, you know what, it was nice to hear all these voices, but it wasn't something that was mandatory for me, I suppose. I would have come to this game just as excited without them.
I'll be honest with you. The presentation of Kart Racers 2, there was enough Nickelodeon, and that even at the time when it came out, my justification was there's so much more Nickelodeon thrown onto the presentation that it's fine without the voice acting. And even if by the time the third one came around, if there was still no voice acting, if that time was then added on to a few more characters, hey, I'm okay with that, it isn't mandatory for me, but I don't know. There is that silence factor difference between having those voices that, I don't know. Once you have them, I don't think you can take them away now,
That is incredibly fair. I don't think that's something that they're allowed to do ever again now. And I hope that doesn't get into the way of like getting more characters in the future. It's like, yeah, we can, but also we need the original voice actor if we're gonna do that.
I think a model to follow it, and I don't know how it's done, but Multiverses, for example, reused clips of Rick and Morty for those characters. So
Yeah.
down the line, I think they mentioned, hey, bringing Justin Roiland in and recording specific voice lines, but I don't know how that would work. And I hope that's something that they could look down for characters like more recent characters. Like, let's say they had Otis from back at the barnyard and they have some of those voice lines still in the vault, you know, what's the process of reusing those? You know, I don't know, but
that's totally fair. Yeah, I would like to continue with the raceways.
yeah,
First off, I absolutely adore the raceways inside this game. A lot of the racetracks are absolutely amazing. They had introduced a water mechanic inside this game. The last game, the first game had a water mechanic that I thought was the most boring thing in the universe. Yeah. Very much disliked it. The second game, they kind of strayed away from that, but they did introduce these slime elements of these slime paths, and whenever you're on these slime paths, your chief will just load up super fast, which was super fun too. And here they introduced waterways, which was super interesting. I really enjoy the wave effect that comes and as you can jump over them and whatnot, and use the waves to get to shortcuts inside the game. I was impressed with that. Along with these, like, almost every single raceway, they introduce a slime speedway where you're on a slime path and you have to jump over all these obstacles, which it's enjoyable. Sometimes it's a huge shortcut that almost anyone can hop on. So I don't understand with shortcuts, for me specifically, they need to be a risk reward factor. So if you have an item that allows you to go through the shortcut and you think that you can make it and it cuts off a huge chunk of time, awesome. But if anyone can use a shortcut, I don't know, part of it feels a little less.
Yeah, I think the best example is it Koopa Troopa Beach on N64 Mario Kart.
Yes.
That little ramp into the cave. You have to have a mushroom for it, and you have to aim yourself, and there is that risk reward. I like the slide mechanic with the jumping over the obstacles. Having little mini games during the race breaks up the monotony just a little bit. Sure. Not that you need to, but the option's there. But yeah, if everybody's good at it and everyone does it, I get what you're saying. Like, what does it actually? What's the risk there?
Yeah.
Other than the fact of messing up the jumps.
Yeah. But even then, so I do believe once you're off the thing, you can do a speed boost, right? And if you miss every single one, you get this awesome speed boost, and the more you jump, the more speed boost you get, which is nice. But even when you're not, there was ones where I'm like, I'm just gonna see what happens when I hit every single one. Hit, boom, still was fine. And I brought out my timer. I'm like, all right, so this is me going on this path, and this is me going on the slime path. And we're gonna see which one goes first. And this one every single time, even when hitting all the obstacles, it's still the fastest way. So it's like, well, what's the point? What's the point of having this?
You really brought out the science into this. Yeah, I don't think anybody in Game Mill is bringing out timers and checking this out. Wow, that's incredible. I didn't even, there have been moments where it felt like I wasn't jumping over all of them, but then the output was still, I made out okay. There really wasn't a penalty for that. And then, that thought process has come up of taking these paths almost now feel mandatory if you want to get really good at the game. And now I'm missing chunks of the level that
absolutely
I kind of want to see.
Yeah. Yeah, and sometimes they're not even shortcuts. Sometimes the other path is the easier path to make. So maybe that's a risk reward of like, will this actually save you time? Will it not? It's like,
I guess tricking the player a little bit. Not everyone should be a path. If they're going to be mandatory in every level, then I like that where you're not, you have to remember if it's a longer one or a short one.
Yeah, absolutely. But that also gives incentive for anyone that is good at the game to hey, I know where all the paths are, and if you're racing against someone new, I don't know. It's not the direction that I would have went into.
No, same. But I'm glad they tried it, and at least for right now, it's not. I don't find it an annoyance, so it's a positivity right now for it.
Absolutely.
I gotta ask you, when you looked over all the levels, what was the number one first level that you were like, I'm either shocked that it's here, it made you happy, put a smile on your face, and you jumped right in?
Oh man, all right. Well, from the first game, it was Double Dare. I was so amazingly excited to see Double Dare. I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. The other one was Mrs. Puff's Boating School. They introduced Mrs. Puff's like racing elements, which I think was a great inclusion, and also that sandcastle episode from SpongeBob. They incorporated some elements in that too, and I'm like, I think this is really like. This meshes really well together, and I'm also very like, I don't want to say jaded, but I really love SpongeBob, so it's like, give me SpongeBob content and I'm gonna eat that sucker up. So that was nice to see. I did enjoy seeing that, and then
I really hope they dive headfirst into the game show levels more for the next game. Get a hidden temple level in there.
I was just about to say, give us hidden temple. What are you
get
doing?
a Nick arcade level going through just different arcade machines and whatnot. You know, a Nickelodeon Guts where the aggro crag takes into place as part of the level.
You're blowing my mind. Why? I want you to work at. I want you to make these games, Captain.
I didn't even say what the piece de la resistance of my game show ideas would be, but I came up with this today. You played Mario Kart 64, I'm guessing.
Of course.
Yoshi's Valley. Think of that concept, and the level is called Figure It Out.
Captain, I'm leaving.
This is, I don't know if that's an application that I need to send out there, but
Captain, we peaked. We have to stop this podcast here.
I don't know.
Okay, so
yeah, I just hope they dive headfirst into that, because it's creative, and Double Dare, as you said, it's such a lovely. If there ever is a Nickelodeon Final Destination type place, I like it to be Double Dare. Absolutely. I really do. And if whatever the Rainbow Road of kart racers is, I don't know. I think Double Dare, or even any one of those game shows, maybe Nickelodeon Guts, the aggro crag with all its color, and can have those elements brought in. But yeah, I'm a big fan along with you with that.
I mean, that is such a good. That is, I can't agree 100 anymore. All right, so we should probably start wrapping this up here in just a second. But before we do, I had like 5 or 6 more questions that I'm like, I have to ask him.
Man, I'm here all night. I don't have any end time, so you're good.
That is so awesome.
You're the one editing this, so it's all on you.
All right, a big like concern that I was having with this game. There were so many visual and physical glitches I was interacting with. There were a lot of pop-ins that like just appeared in the background. I'll show the footage of it, but when you were riding on this space, sometimes the ground would just shift. That it was so weird and awkward. I'm like, why is it doing this? Along with a lot of the visuals, when it like first appears on the screen, like if there's a text, it will like be blurry, and then immediately you're like, oh yeah, loading correctly, and then it'll load, and it's like it's so jarring to see that, especially that happens to the characters too. Like the comic Raphael, he'll just be a white figure, and then like 3 seconds later, boom, let's add the designs on him. And it's like, oh, okay, well, visually, I'm not a fan of that, but sure, like, it's nothing that breaks the game. Is something that makes me so mad, Captain. That does break the game, though. I have consistently...
Tell me why you're mad.
I have consistently broken through the bottom of the floor. Like, my character will just be driving, he'll fly, and then... No, like, I went through the back rooms and just phased through the floor.
Wow, really?
I
don't know. I haven't had any, like, bugs like this. And you're playing on PC as well, right?
No, I'm playing on Switch. So that might be...
All right, so that's... in my time on Switch, definitely there have been more hiccups, and certainly the frame rate has been, like, the noticeable part.
Absolutely.
But I haven't run into anything graphically like that, but I imagine an update has to be coming.
I hope. There was one... Well, there was 2. It happened right after the other that actually helped me in the race. One, I like cut through the floor. And the thing is, whenever this happens, it takes a while for you to, like, for them to rescue you. You'll fall for like 12, 14, 16 seconds, and you're like, when am I gonna like get picked up? I'm in 12th place right now. This sucks. I fell through the floor. It loaded me in a future checkpoint way ahead of the track, like a huge jump, and I'm like, oh, I'm here now. So I start driving, I'm doing great, I'm like, oh my god, I'm in first, this is awesome. Happens again. I fall right through the floor. I'm like, oh my god! oh my god! And then I load into the same checkpoint. So I did these huge cuts in the race, completely unintentionally. But yeah, I'd like skip giant portions of the race. That's the only time where it's actually helped me. But also, do I want it to happen? No.
Yeah, I mean, not at your like, just, you have no control over it and you have no idea when it's going to happen and whatnot. So no, you don't want that to happen and occur. But I don't know. I feel like, especially these days with how games release in such broken states. And luckily, to be fair, none of these Nickelodeon games have come out truly unplayable.
I will agree,
in
yes.
some fashion.
Yes.
But yeah, I 3 months is a good kind of time to give that first digestion period of a game, and for them to get the most like innate bugs out and to get that performance up. So I would say, especially on the Switch, 3 months, hopefully they get that game really up and running. Because if you're going to copy Mario Kart, you're gonna be up there. There is a level of just fluidity that people expect, and if it's choppy and you're falling through the game and entering the back rooms, that's certainly not a fun time.
I don't know. I struggle with it so much, and every part of me was trying not to scream with all these just a lot of them were small, admittedly. The one where I'm falling through, and I'll touch a lot of this in my review, but it was just, a lot of it was just not, it was fun, it was not fun, it's a great game. When it comes down to brass tats, it's a fantastic game. I do really enjoy it. The last thing I'll say about the game is that a lot of it is reused. So I actually, here, I'm gonna pull up my notes here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me grab, so there's 16 new characters, 42 characters altogether. 4 are missing, and the last game had 30 characters. And there are 19 new tracks and 17 new tracks. 50% of this game is the old game.
Carryover. Yeah.
And that feels kind of dirty. Especially because 1, 2, and 3 are all on the same console. So if you're gonna make another game on the same console, especially a kart racer, I feel like you need to be adding a lot more, because 50% of this game is just 2. Which is the only reason why I'm like, this is Nickelodeon Kart Racers 2.5. It's like...
Yeah. It certainly makes sense. Now, the director has maintained the same throughout the 3 of these games, Adam Johnston, and I have to imagine that through the process from game to game, there's just, hey, here's the time frame we have, and especially with the addition of gathering the voice crew, I might have to imagine that juggled more time that then could have been devoted to more characters, more levels, and hey, it's just like this is the best package we could get, because who knows if the contract said you need to have this game out by this time or this quarter or whatnot. So I just hope, hey, DLC is an ongoing thing, and I think All-Star Brawl seems to have been a success, because I was hoping that was so that Nickelodeon understood that there's more money to be made in the realm of DLC. So
absolutely.
In the racing game, just DLC, just do it.
Absolutely.
Make a 90s pack, make a 2000s pack, make like people go nuts over these kinds of things. And if you start adding niche characters in, this is what the internet gets crazy over. And don't be like Disney, where you just figure out, oh, things trend because people like our stuff. Already get that understood, and then just surprise people with Snap from Chalk Zone out of nowhere as a racer.
Snap. I would love Snap.
Yeah, there you go. He needs to be in the game.
That's
and a Chalk.
fair.
Imagine a Chalk Zone racing level.
That would be the best thing. Best thing. I totally agree with you there. It is a $30 increase from the last game. That's also like part of my decision. Like, will I pay the money? Absolutely, I will. But it does more or less feel a lot like the last game.
Yep.
And I agree with you with the them having to do this on like a time period, because consistently every October I'm like, what are they gonna do? They're gonna announce a new game here soon. Like when October, September come around, I'm like, a new game is coming out. That's just like, what will it be, right? And I was surprised to see Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, that right there. It's like, wow, that's okay, cool.
I'm shocked that yet again it was leaked, and the leaks were there for so long before there was an announcement for it. And it should be one of those things that once it leaks, just throw the trailer out the next day. I know, on the back end, promotional stuff might need time to get ready, but
Sure.
It felt like a longer period of time where it was like, guys, are we getting any clue of this? And then they just
at all.
Screenshots and trickling with Jimmy Neutron. We know about it. Is it coming or?
Yeah, it's so bizarre. And I like, personally speaking, Nickelodeon Kart Racers 1 and 2 really helped grow my channel. They were a huge, just, so the fact that Nickelodeon Kart Racers 3, we got it, I'm like, oh my god, like, hopefully, this has been part of my, like, my channel's history. I really, really love it. But also half of me is like, maybe they should move on and make something else. Especially because I felt like 2 was such a perfect, like, you have perfected it. Now let's perfect something else. There's a lot about Nickelodeon All-Stars that I'm not the biggest fan of, and there's a lot that I love about it, but there's also that I'm like, there's just not a whole lot of single-player variety there. Work on another Nickelodeon or All-Stars,
That one just in its own right. If that, like Kart Racers, if that one's a concept of a future game, I think they knocked it out of the park with that. And I want Nickelodeon and Paramount, whoever is in charge of this, to invest in these. Yes, overall, you're just tapping into our nostalgia, and we're all like, Fry, take my money. But take my money. Like, why isn't there collections of games of all the classic Nickelodeon games? I have no idea. There's money to be made. There's money on the table. Take my money, please, and make more of these. Take this kart racing concept, and here's an idea for them. There's a game that a few other series have tried to emulate, but hasn't been touched in a while. Nickelodeon Kart Racers 4 should just be Double Dash. And that way, you have a reason to now add in you have 80 Nickelodeon. Oh my god, you have so many Nickelodeon characters, and you can customize them. And that alone would just blow up the animation Twitter of just get the characters in. It doesn't have to be the prettiest looking game, it doesn't have to beat out a 4K Mario Kart 9. But my whole point is, for this entire series, is if you're a Nickelodeon fan, there is certainly a lot to be found. There's a lot to love. You can feel that there's genuine care for this series with these developers. So I hope that they just get more of the floodgates opened to them, because I can tell with what they're allowed to have, they can excel. So Nickelodeon, please, absolutely. Brian, open it up for them. Give them the Fairly Odd Parents, give them Chalk Zone, all of it.
Absolutely. All right, well, that leads us to my last question that I'm hoping to ask you for the day. If they are Game Mill, because they have consistently been making video games with these properties, which I'm a huge fan of, but if they are to make another one, what kind of game would you hope to receive emulated as far as Nickelodeon characters go?
If they came to me and it had to be different from a kart racer and a brawler, I think the next step with these characters would be a party game.
Like a Mario Party?
Would be a Mario Party. And,
yes.
And honestly, just copy the classic. They released Mario Party Superstars on the Switch, which has been an enjoyable experience. And those mini games are timeless. They're simple. Just copy those mini games. Give us a Nintendo 64 style Nickelodeon. Like, what if this was released in the year 90, 98, 99? Polygon, Hey Arnold, and Reptar. Just do it. I think that would be a great hit.
I agree. If I were to do any, which a Mario Party clone would definitely be like of my top. Yep. My favorite would probably be a sports title. I know that they did tennis, tennis was super fun. I really enjoyed it. I would love if they could bring that over to the Switch, but I know that there's some legal stuff with Google Play and whatnot. So
goodness.
But golf, release a golf, I'm about it. Do it. I'd like all the characters, just give them a golf, then have some fun Nickelodeon golf courses that I can go through. Honestly, I would be so about it.
Yeah, it's simple, because as long as you can get the golf mechanics perfectly set, then you can go absolutely nuts, bananas even, with the Nickelodeon courses. You can just spend all of your time on what more can we throw on top of this. The mechanics just have to be perfect. That's it.
I would love it if they were to take those Nickelodeon game shows and put them on the Switch. And but I wanted to see your favorite ones and all that. But I mean, that's definitely
cheese them up, honestly. Like, with how kind of those Wheel of Fortune Jeopardy versions are, it doesn't. Yeah, I love that. I honestly don't know why there aren't more game developers coming to Nickelodeon and going like, hey, can we do this? And Sega, that's who I was thinking of. The fact that they let fans make Sonic Mania, don't understand why that isn't more prevalent, why there aren't fans of Nickelodeon, not that there aren't fans of Nickelodeon making games, but why they aren't going to the studio and going, why can't we make
we make this, please?
A PS1 style Are You Afraid of the Dark survival horror game.
God, that would be so good.
There's so much to be found in this realm, and I hope that there's just creative minds in the video game space to take advantage of it. I would love to, and hey, if I have to be the one to do it, so be it. But I have enough time making the podcast as is. So.
Well, that's a great transition to the ending of this. We are running out of time, unfortunately, but it has absolutely been a fun chat with you, Captain.
Thank you.
Can you please tell the people at home how we can reach you, where we can find you at, what platforms you're on?
Absolutely. If you would like to check out any of the content I make, the best place is YouTube. Search up Captain Eric. I'm sure you'll have a link in the description for me. That's where all of my podcasts get uploaded with so much extra artistic flair, video flair. More videos will be coming just of other kinds of content that can delve into the stuff I'm into, but ultimately just stuff I enjoy. Twitter, go to I'm Ready Podcast on Twitter. Also on Instagram, SpongeBob Podcast. And on YouTube, it's the Halloween season. If you'd like to see Captain Eric in some sort of spooky movies, you can look up Running Scared Motion Pictures. Check out that YouTube channel, and you'll get to see a completely different side of Captain Eric.
I never knew about that one, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I highly suggest the Captain's podcast. I really enjoy them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I didn't even say anything about those. Oh, my goodness. That's my bread and butter. If you listen to podcasts, I mentioned YouTube, but if you do listen to podcasts and you have your platform of choice, Google, Apple, Spotify, look up I'm Ready, a SpongePod Squarecast. I'm covering episode to episode and most of the video games, the entirety of SpongeBob. I would say don't start with episode 1. I would say start with the most newest seasons. If I can go back and re-record those episodes, I would do it in a heartbeat. But also, This Week in Nickelodeon History should be self-explanatory of a podcast. That comes out every Sunday. I'm Ready comes out every Thursday. Appreciate any kind words, anything that you guys leave me. Crispy here has just been one of my adamant supporters for a long time, and just for any content creators out there, like if you're starting out small, big, like just sending messages, comments, it's the best thing in the world. So I'm just telling you from advice, from experience. So
well, thank you for joining me again, Captain. I really appreciate you coming on. I really appreciate you. It's been awesome. And thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys in another episode. Goodbye.